Welcome to the 3 Knockdown Rule. Starring Mario Lopez and Steve Kim. Presented by Hustler Casino and UFC Fight Pass.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 3 Knockdown Rule on UFC Fight Pass is in effect. I'm Steve Kim, joined by my host, Mario Millie Vanilli Lopez. Yes, you know it's true. Good doc coming out, huh?
We're going to get into that later. You know what I do, though? I never blame it on the rain. Okay, this is so corny right there. I apologize. I'm a little under the weather, so corniness of Kimster is rubbing off on me. Won't rub off on the podcast, so shout out to Smoking Tim Frazier and
Tino on the edits. All right, the bout sheet for this particular show. It was Forum Fury, and then it's farewell to Jorge Linares, Ask Mario, and final flurries. Before we get started, we just want you to know this podcast is sponsored by Hustler Casino, located in Gardena, California, just 20 minutes away from downtown LA. Hey, check out the latest promo, So Fine Sundays, where they're giving away tons of cash. Beat the stadium traffic and play your favorite games at Hustler Casino. For more info, go to hustlercasino.com.
Also, shout out and big thanks to our sponsor, neighbor right here in Hollywood, Scout Micro LA. They offer a unique and innovative hair loss solution for men. They specialize in a treatment called SMP. It restores and replicates the exact shape and size of hair follicles by tattooing tiny particles of pigment into the scalp, giving the illusion of hair. It's very real, looks very authentic. You can see results in as little as one treatment. They can restore your hairline, make your hair look a little thicker, more dense, also camouflage any burns or a skin condition that you may have. They use the highest qualities. A lot of happy customers out there. So if you're going bald or if you're just looking for a new look this summer, hit up our homies over at Scout Micro LA. Mention this ad for a free consult.
If you're getting thin, he'll help fill you in.
Round 1.
All right, let's get started. This past weekend from the Forum on the Zone, brought to you by Golden Boy Promotions, welterweights in action. Giovanni Santillan with a dominant 6th-round knockout over Alexis Rocha. Mario coming into this fight, it was all set for Rocha. 4-1 favorite. OC's in the house. Golden Boy Promotions was starting to make a move with you. But as they say, from the words of the the great Larry Merchant, it's why you fight the fights.
Yeah, don't put Larry in the grave yet. Rest in peace. I love me some Larry. We don't want him to rest in peace yet. We were just talking about how Rocha has been very busy. He has been not only active, but looked like he's improved in every fight. My guy Giovanni, which by the way, great name, from San Diego too, came in here and what did it say about best laid plans? Just threw a monkey wrench in everything. To me, this is one of my favorite fights of the year, and I'm going to tell you why. Because of the things, both men fought with a lot of valor and intensity. They went in there, Kimster, and from the first bell, there was no feeling out. There were these two Mexicans that went down and just started throwing chingazos. An old-fashioned Donnybrook. No feeling out. By the end of the first round, I don't know if his nose was broken, but it was certainly bloody. Alex Rocha knew he had his hands full. Two southpaws just going at it. I was supposed to be at this fight. I had to work, unfortunately, and I am so mad that I missed it because it looked like a fun event. People that were there said it was great. Major upset. I believe he was a 4-1 underdog, which was a little surprising considering he was still 31-0, and I believe 16 or 17 knockouts. I know his last couple outings, he didn't look like the heavy-handed slugger that he showed to be this past Saturday, but man, did he rise to the occasion. Just hard shots from the get came in, and just uppercuts, hooks, all power punches, inside fighting. And it kept getting more intense as the rounds went on. I don't necessarily think Giovanni was that much better than Rocha from a technical standpoint or more fundamentally sound. They were almost mirrors of each other. He just seemed to beat him to the punch, and when he got him there, he seemed to have the heavier hands. Honestly, it wasn't like I saw a master technician. They were like two guys who were mirrors of each other, but one just had heavier hands and was a little slicker with his defense. Rocha looked like he got in a car accident by the time the 6th round was over. Giovanni looked like he just got out of the shower and shaved. It was an exciting fight. It was an all-out brawl. My guy was so composed from the first round to the end. Robert Garcia really has taken this kid who's not known for being a slugger or for laying down beatdowns like this, and has done a masterful job in making him look incredibly dangerous. We made a statement, and we've got a player in the welterweight division. Tip of the hat to Rocha, kept fighting, got off the canvas twice. I'm glad they stopped it when it did. We want to see him live to fight another day. But it was an exciting fight. Man, one of my favorite fights this year, because as long as it lasted, those 6 rounds, it was exciting. It had me afterwards. I was like, I want to talk about it. I was fired up. I really enjoyed that fight. Both fighters did a great job. But Via Giovanni, man, wow. San Diego boy, I got to find out exactly from where, but really made a statement.
I think this fight boiled down to one key element. One guy could hurt each other, the other guy couldn't. It really was that simple. And Santillan, from the very beginning, there was no feel out, as he said. He started backing him up. And Rocha, I do wonder if him and his trainer manager, Hector Lopez, if they had it to do over again after round 1, would say, okay, you know what? Let's take a walk around the park. Let's slow down the action, and let's quicken our pace with our feet, but slow down the action, because if he wasn't getting hurt with the left hand, he was getting hurt with the right.
Oh, he threw that right hook about 6-7 times, especially towards the end, too. You're exactly right.
And then it was the uppercuts down the middle. And then look, Rocha tried to rally, but punch resistance and the way you react to punches, it absolutely matters. You talk about the impact of Robert Garcia. I have actually seen Giovanni Santillan from the beginning of his career. It was actually developed at first by Thompson Boxing and was steadily developed, and then was signed to a co-promotional deal with Top Rank. There was a thought that Santillan's progress had kind of stalled out, and they brought him over to the RGBA. Talking to some of the people behind the scenes, they believe that the real impact is that at the RGBA, you can get sparring 6 days a week at the world-class level that simply is not available to you in San Diego.
And that's it. You're exactly right. And that means a world of difference. If you're a guy that's willing to put into work, dedicate yourself, be disciplined, and get in there, you will grow leaps and bounds. In individual sports, at any sort of combat sports, whether it's jiu-jitsu, whether it's boxing, you need your counterpart to sharpen you and get you better. Because, that was a different kind of fighter, and they're very confident, dangerous, slugger is what I saw from Santillan.
Yeah, you could say it's by osmosis. Sometimes if you're around superior craftsmen, you start to rise to that level.
Right.
Okay, so the one thing about Santillan, I'll never forget, during the bubble era of Top Rank, he fought Antonio DeMarco, a blown-up lightweight at the very end. And there's a lot of people that think he didn't win that fight. In fact, he was very hesitant, very tentative, and I'm thinking, let your hands go.
He's a crafty guy, DeMarco, though.
But you know what, though? In this fight, he said, I'm going to take the lead here. We're not going to put our punches on layaway, and I am going to take command. And Mario, you talk about the bloody nose. I'm not so sure if it was a broken nose, but there's no doubt that that was very symbolic. I actually think, I don't want to say desperation set into the mind of Rocha early, but I do think there was some doubt. To get bloodied right off the bat, that psychologically, we don't know what that does to a fighter inside that ring.
There was no feel out round, no gauging of distance, and they were both southpaws. I don't care what kind of quality sparring you're getting. You're not going to see. There's only so many southpaws.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm sure they had to split the partners, being that they're both in Southern California, right here. I think he probably felt, in the camp of Rocha, probably felt the need to really have to perform because they were in their hometown. This was a showcase for him. They wanted to make a statement. Well, Santillan had different plans, and therefore, I don't think they pause to sort of reflect and change the game plan a little bit, much to the detriment of the outcome. But look, Rocha, he's been having a heck of a year. Obviously didn't end it on the note that he wanted to, but I think he needs a nice long rest because it was a very physical fight, and he says he'll be back, and I like that kid, and I hope to see him back.
As for Santillan, if you take a look at the big picture at 147, look, the time with Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford is at the very, very tail end, if not over.
Right.
So there's a very good chance there are 4 open vacant belts.
Yes.
This particular title was the NABO, which is the junior title of the WBO, which is very connected to Top Rank. You could put 1 + 1 together, and you know the math. But Santillan now goes to the front of the line for at least a shot with the WBO sooner rather than later.
Based on that performance, he deserves it. I want to see him fight again. I want to see him
I want to
fight
see
again.
that version again.
Exactly. I think that version worked out so well for him. I don't think he's going to take a step back from that. So that was a nice little. Sometimes it is the atmosphere. Sometimes it is the trainer. They seem to be working, Garcia and Santillan.
Right, and earlier that day from Liverpool, UK, on the zone, Jack Catterall with a clear-cut 12-round decision over Jorge Linares, 116-112, 2 times. 117-111. Look, we want to give credit to Catterall. He's one of the very best crafty 140-pounders. In my view, you could actually say he's the champion because I think he beat Josh Taylor in February of 2022. You know what? On this occasion, I want to deliver a bouquet of FTDs to the great Jorge Linares, who said, it's over. I am going to retire. What a distinguished, colorful, fun career.
Jorge Linares might be one of the prettiest fighters I think I've ever seen. And I say that in the sense that he put his punches together in such a poetic fashion.
Oh, it's intricate. Wasn't intricate. Oh.
And the way he dances around, he was so light on his feet. He was graceful in there, very Loma-esque. When they both fought each other, it was like Baryshnikov.
Against Gregory Hines.
Right, exactly. I was just going to use that reference. And it was beautiful to watch. And even in his last fight, which he says it's his last fight, he looked good, Kim. It wasn't like I saw a guy that lost too much of a step or no longer can put those combinations together. He went up against one of the better fighters in the division. Some may think even the champion. And I thought he looked good. It wasn't enough, but I thought he looked good. So I'd rather him get out a little too early than to have a severe beat down. The one thing I will say about Linares is every fight he's been in, minus this one, ironically, he's either dropped his opponent or has had his opponent hurt. He's had moments in every big fight against every high caliber fighter. If he hasn't won them, then he's done both of those things. Case in point with Devin Haney, I think in the 10th round when he had him hurt. Was a great moment. You never know. Loma too. He had him drop. So, and these are against high level champions here. So Linares, one of my favorites to watch. Champion. I pause because you almost think Hall of Fame career, right below the borderline almost.
Hall
right?
of very good.
Hall of very good, but he's great. If that makes sense.
Yes,
he's great, but Hall of very good. I remember we both talked about it when he first came on the scene and he was sparring with Manny Pacquiao. Man, that was probably at his peak physically. He looked incredible. You don't want to ever say who won or anything, but because it's sparring, but man, he gave him fits. And those were just like two little whirlwinds, tornadoes
Mario,
in there.
He was 19 years old. I'll never forget. This is when Manny was still working out in the upstairs portion of Wild Card. And McAfoley says, Steve, there's this Venezuelan kid. He's giving Manny fits. And I go, what's his name? He goes, I think it's Linares or something. But Rudy Hernandez is his trainer or he's his chaperone. 15 minutes later, Rudy Hernandez walks in. I said, Rudy, who's this kid you're bringing? Oh, Jorge Linares. He's like 19, 20 years old. He goes, Steve, he's dynamic. So I go over to Freddie. And
Dynamic's a great word.
And I said, Freddie, do you mind if I watch sparring? And he said, yeah, sure. Go ahead, stick around. And all I'm going to say is this, and you're right, nobody wins sparring. And the one thing about Manny, he never bullied sparring partners.
No.
He was always a better real fighter than gym fighter, honestly.
What you want to do.
But you knew early on that this was a gifted kid. It was almost ballet-like.
That's what I said.
It was elegant. It was beautiful. It was aesthetically pleasing. And I believe that he's one of the most fantastically gifted boxer punchers I've ever seen. But what made it fun was he was also gifted and also cursed. He was this close from greatness because what held him back? Punch resistance.
Can you imagine if he had a Chavez like
We're talking all-time great.
All-time great. That's why I'm saying he's a great fighter with a very good career.
Yes.
That's fair to say, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's almost, to me, if he was...
Not to compare it, I'm sorry to compare, like Amir Khan.
Another one. Sort of, not as maybe athletically gifted as Linares, but quick hands, great snappy punches, can put those combinations together beautifully, but again with the punch resistance. So it's like walk on a tightrope. No, I used to call him a Wallenda brother.
Yes.
Because he would be out there on that tightrope, 5,000 feet up in the air. There's no safety net, and that's what made it so appealing as a viewer because
you don't know what's going to happen.
He could be pitching a perfect game and give up the 10-run home run, and I still remember him falling apart late after looking like just one of the greatest fighters ever for 9.5, 10 rounds against Antonio DeMarco, and then he looks like a blood donor to the Red Cross, and they wave off the fight. And to this day, I've always said, wait a minute. If he's actually fighting well, I don't care if he looks like a Sissy Spacek in that one movie, Carrie, at the end of that Homecoming. And then he had a tune-up bout where they're going to do the rematch in Mexico. He's a 100-1 favorite. Gets knocked out by Sergio Thompson. And at that point, Golden Boy wanted to dispose of him, but it was Robert Diaz, the matchmaker at the point, who said, you know what, let's try to rescue this. And the fact that he had chapters to his career and he had rebirths over and over again.
And he'd go to Japan.
And he'd go to England to fight Anthony Corolla.
Right.
And guys like that. And Kevin Mitchell in some great fights. He made some real money. But Linares, to me, and I've said this before, he's like a chandelier. Ever seen a chandelier? Hangs real nice, sparkly, shiny, bright. It just looks beautiful. Don't drop it. Don't drop it. Do not jostle it. Handle it with care, but even when it's all shattered, still looks kind of good. Still looks kind of like, wow, that's nice.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I have a question. It's always a debate in boxing. Is the chin the last thing you need to be really good, or the first thing you need?
Depends on the rest of your skill set. If you put them all out on the table, speed, strength, chin, athletic ability. A chin can save you a lot, but it doesn't. I don't know if you'll necessarily win fights because of your chin, but sometimes you will. But look, if you can have the combination, a little bit of it's. And not everyone's going to have the Chavez iron-like chin, right? But he didn't even have. He was on Amir Khan level, with his chin.
The vulnerability,
but man, that athletic ability. I would have maybe given up a little athletic ability to have a little bit more punch resistance if given choice.
Durability is important at that world-class level. So Jorge Linares is 38 years old. He will finish with a career mark of 47-9, 29 knockouts. And Mario, given the fact that you called him a beautiful boxer, that is one sexy man. I mean, so I think he has a career in media, in television. He always treated people very nice. He's one of the nicest guys. He's a real gentleman. And guess what? His English is improving.
Oh, great.
So I would hope that the next chapter of his life really does begin now, because I always thought after the Haney fight, he went to Russia, he got knocked out late. I thought that should have been the last fight, but I think him and his handlers wanted to see, can we make one last title run to get to the Hall of Fame? Look, they didn't make it, but I could say this. It was an honorable, fun, colorful career. Nothing to be ashamed of.
And it was an honorable way to go out.
Yes. So, all right, so that's it for round one of the 3 Knockdown Rule on UFC Fight Pass. When we come back, more with fight preview and news and notes, and Ask Mario and Final Flurries.
Catch it streaming live right on YouTube.
Welcome to the big leagues, kid.
$1.2 million.
And I'm losing in this fucking game. What the fuck?
There's a 400K flip. If I win by way, you get 10 grand.
Fucking
For my fans.
What? Twice.
Wow. All in a call.
I'm not fucking leaving.
Raise it up.
And we're back on the 3 Knockdown Rule. And ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to get involved with the 3 Knockdown Rule and sponsor our show, we still have some slots available. Please reach out to us by emailing to info@boxbid.io. Once again, that's info@boxbid.io. Boxbid.io is an online platform that is launching soon that helps public figures and professionals in the world of boxing get sponsorships. We are proudly working with boxbid.io. Okay.
Review preview.
Yes, this Saturday from Saudi Arabia, for better or worse. Love it or hate it, it's going to happen. Tyson Fury takes on Francis Ngannou. Mario, is there any chance of a miracle?
Well, there's always a chance. Anytime two men step in there and throw on some gloves, anything can happen. Now, I liken it to like a 1 in a million shot.
Well, that's a lottery ticket.
But,
that's a super lotto there.
Hey, people hit the lotto, though.
Yeah, they do.
People hit the lotto. Like I said, I don't have a problem with these sort of novelty fights if they're sandwiched in between real fights, which now we know it is with Fury and Usyk. Ngannou is like an incredibly nice guy, likable guy, dangerous individual if you were to meet him in the octagon, because really strong, heavy-handed, huge, athletic, can kick you, can grapple, and obviously can punch, but he can't do any of that in this ring. He can just punch, and Fury, I think, will have his way with him, but will have fun with it and will put on a show because he's an entertainer.
This will be Michael Jordan taking on Wayne Gretzky in a one-on-one game of basketball. They are great. They're both incredible, all-time greats at their respective fields, but one guy is not in an octagon and the other guy's in his natural habitat. Also, Ngannou, I don't know if he's ever going to be punched cleanly like the way real boxers, like, look, these UFC guys or MMA guys have gotten really good at striking, but they don't have that ability to turn over the punches quite like boxers.
I'm going to tell you why, though, because they can't have a boxer stance.
Right.
You have to have more of a wrestler stance because you have to you have to check the kicks, you have to guard the takedowns. So therefore you're not able to be in a proper boxer stance to be able to turn him over. Does that make sense?
It does. And I've seen some of the workout footage where Ngannou's being coached up by Iron Mike Tyson. I think it's great for the promotion. But again, look, I think Ngannou's a big, strong athlete. I remember doing a story a couple years ago when I was still at ESPN where I did a story where I was asked to ask Joe Goosen which boxers or which UFC guys could be good and make the transition. And when Joe saw footage of Ngannou, we had a laptop at the gym, he said, that guy's not bad for a big guy. He actually kind of liked him. The problem is, not that I know, has he ever been in a boxing match of any sort?
Not to my knowledge, but let's say he has, and he even had an amateur background. You going to go up with a heavyweight champion? And this is like Rocky Balboa-esque.
Right. Unlike with Thunderlips, that's a real thing.
Exactly.
Look, I don't know how well it's going to do. It's obviously going to get a lot of attention. But with Tyson Fury, I don't expect anything to really derail this because, look, he could box from the outside and be safe. And if he wanted to attack right down the middle, again, the natural mechanisms from mixed martial artists that you talk about, shooting, grappling, reverse chokehold, it's not available.
Right, exactly.
None of that is available. I'll draw another analogy. Ngannou is like the decathlete, right? He's Daley Thompson. He could do 15 different events or 10 different events.
Like your boy Bruce Jenner.
Right. Or whatever he's going by. Tyson Fury is Usain Bolt, and they are doing the 100-meter dash. So we'll just leave it at that. There is other boxing that day as we move on with the fight preview on the zone from Cancun, Mexico. Pretty good fight here. WBC Junior Lightweight Champion of the World, O'Shaquie Foster takes on the rugged, rough Rocky Hernandez. I like that fight. And also from Orlando, Florida, Amando Serrano headlines against Danilo Ramos. All right, so let's go to the Ask Mario portion of this program. Here's one from Carl Brandt. Mario loves him some mariscos.
Yep.
But does he drink clamato?
You know what, Carl? I don't. Ironically.
At all, really?
I don't. But you know what I do like? Some Mario Chiladas. You like micheladas, don't you, Kimster?
Is the Pope Catholic?
Okay.
Of course I do.
So have you not tried my Mario Chilada?
No, I've had that. It's good.
It's good, right?
Solid.
It's solid. So if you like clamatos, I suggest getting a michelada. It's much tastier. So try a Mario Chilada. When I'm having mariscos, I will have either a chilada or just one beer. The thing about beer is I feel full, so I don't want to substitute my mariscos. By the way, we're due for a mariscos run.
Orale.
You're not down?
No, I'm very down. Okay. I'm down like dirt. Here's the thing about clamato, and I've had plenty of it. I wish it was a little bit thicker. It doesn't have to be as thick as V8, the spicy one. Yeah. It doesn't have to be like tomato soup.
Do you like Bloody Marys?
Oh, yeah. I've had a lot when I take early morning flights.
See, I'm not a Bloody Mary.
You're not at all?
I like that.
You don't like the celery stick and the
my
olive?
Sister, all the people. I'm just not. I feel like, I don't know. It's not enough liquor and it's trying to be healthy, but it's not healthy.
No, you got to go double shot on the thing.
You got it? Okay.
The double shot.
All right.
But with Clamato, I wish it was a little bit thicker, but I've had a lot of ice-cold Clamato on summer days. All I could say is, orale. Also, from Manic84, how would Terrence Crawford do against Triple G at 160 now, and wouldn't that be a good fight to stir the appetite for a Canelo showdown?
That's interesting. Well, first of all, I don't know if it's been announced, but if I assumed Triple G retired. We haven't seen him since he last
13 months since his last
Canelo.
fight.
And he's had an awesome Hall of Fame worthy career. I say that without hesitation. I love me some
Agreed.
Triple G. If he wants to go for one more payday, I wouldn't be angry at that fight. I don't know if it would whet my appetite more for a Canelo one, to be honest with you. You really want to get me intrigued in that fight? Like I said, let him go up and fight Zoo, and then after that, fight Janibek, and then
bingo.
Then we're ready to go.
From your lips to God's ears. And here's the thing about Gennady Golovkin. I saw him, I'm sure you may have seen it on Twitter, where he's got his own energy drink, and I guess he's at some whatever version of 7-Eleven.
He looks civilized.
He looks civilized. He looks
civilized.
The dad bod in effect.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, look, he's going to still have that ramrod jab,
Right.
those heavy hands, but just, my guy's putting in his time.
I believe the blade is now permanently dulled. He's had enough.
Right.
He's made his money.
Yeah.
And there comes
He's
a
had a
certain
great career.
Right. When that pilot light flickers and goes off, and at his age, with the type of style that he had, and remember, he was a relatively old pro from the beginning.
Correct, because he had a long amateur career.
Well
correct.
over 300 amateur fights. So the odometer, and to me, look, he actually put on a respectable performance against Canelo last year. He actually won a few rounds.
Yeah, I was at that fight.
So, in my view, it looks to me like he has hit the civilian life.
I agree.
Here's one from David. If Usyk beats Fury, does he leapfrog ahead of Bud/Inoue as the best boxer on the planet? If he wins, he is undisputed 4-belt lineal heavyweight champion. He was undisputed 4-belt cruiserweight champion, Olympic gold medalist, Super 6 winner, undefeated, interesting technical style, clever, and crazy.
That's a great point. And for the reasons that he just stated, I'm going to say yes.
What?
Yes.
Whoa.
You wouldn't agree? Look at the... I'm going to repeat it. I'm going to repeat it. I'm going to repeat it.
All that matters, though?
Undisputed 4-belt lineal.
Okay, that matters.
Heavyweight champion. Okay,
That matters.
then he was undisputed 4-belt cruiserweight champion.
Okay, that's...
And then he just went up and he just beat the man in Tyson Fury. The one there's
you know
no
what?
doubt.
Hold on.
There's no doubt that he's the best heavyweight on the planet. Wait, do you agree with that? Tyson
If
Fury?
he beats someone that's 45 pounds heavier, you know what? Maybe you're not nuts. Now that
That's
I think
what I'm
about
saying.
it, I keep forgetting
he
about
goes up
that.
that dude. He's a monster. If he somehow figures out a way to beat Tyson Fury, I have no problem putting him number one pound for pound.
And that is an opinion that is very field. Here's one from Canada Chris. Do you think there will be a lot more downtime due to reduced purses while fighters adjust to whatever new broadcasting landscape exists in the near future? Mario, what did you make of Eddie Hearn saying, flat out, a couple of fighters and their managers and advisors, they don't want to take fights and all this other stuff. We're just going to release them. Like, is there a great market reset coming in boxing?
I hope so.
Ooh.
I really do, because they'll take a page from the UFC and in the sense that, oh, okay, you don't want to fight? Next man up. And now with this new landscape, I'm hoping they're working behind the scenes and streamers are starting to get involved and it's just a passing of the torch. I'm hoping there's not a lull. But then again, I'm your eternal optimist.
I really believe the fighters that want to fight more often should be able to say, you know what, guys, let's make a deal. I just don't like the fact that a lot of fighters are with a particular promoter who's with a particular network, and they're slotted for 2 dates a year, and there's almost no wiggle room. What if a guy's willing to say, you know what, I'll take a little less money, but I want to work off the activity and the exposure.
Right.
I think too many fighters are shoehorned, and then they fall into it. And I don't know how we're going to develop stars, to be honest, if there is no recognizability on a consistent level.
No one seems to point that out. And as I sit and ponder, after Canelo sets off into the sunset, who's our next pay-per-view star?
Well, Tank Davis. He is a star, I would say, but is he a star to that level without Ryan Garcia?
Well, that was just going to point out. He needs a dance partner still. Canelo doesn't. So there's still no one at that level. Okay, outside of Tank Davis, who's had his problems, we don't know, with Tank. And then with the politics involved, he doesn't even fight the guys that we want to see him fight at the moment. So I unfortunately struggle to think who's going to be our next big pay-per-view star.
Right, and the other issue is with managers, they are so afraid of losing. It's almost like part of their identity. If
That needs to change.
Right, and my view is this. Look, this is a money game, but the whole market thing needs to change. I see a lot of fighters saying we need to be at the table too in terms of the great. All right, but are you speaking for yourself as an individual athlete or collective? Because we saw what was going on Twitter last week, where guys like Ryan Garcia and Terrence Crawford were kind of going back and forth with Oscar De La Hoya, who's now a promoter, who says, well, we need to be at the table. Okay, but if fighters are going to be at the table, okay, is it just going to be about my personal interest or going all the way down to the 4-round fighter? Because think about it. In other sports, when you have a collective bargaining agreement, it's just not the LeBron James that are protected.
Right.
It's also the 12th man.
Right.
And so I just find that to be a very interesting dynamic in a sense that fighters say, well, we should control the money. Right. Well, fighters will say, well, I want all the money. Like Teofimo Lopez saying, ESPN's got this big budget of 89, 90 million. I only saw this percentage of it. And I'm like, Tio, Top Rank does 30 shows and they have 80 other fighters.
We got to spread the love, my man.
Well,
we got to spread
that's
the love.
my point, though. What about the other fighters then, Tio?
That's what
they
I'm
don't
saying.
deserve any of the money?
Speaking of Tio, I'm not mad. I actually really like the idea of him fighting Ryan Garcia Super Bowl weekend. Do you think it would be a mistake if you took a fight prior to that?
I wish he would, but he's not. And again, he's still in the prime of his career,
I
right?
know.
Mid-20s, one fight. And that fight came in the first half of the year, early June. I know there's some personal issues that are affecting his professional decisions, but there comes a point, though, don't you have to do your job?
Yeah.
Here's a question from Canada Chris again. Do you get the feeling that Edgar Berlanga has too much say in who he fights and Jaime Munguia does not have enough? That's a great question.
That is a good question. I think that's valid. For some reason, it seems to me that East Coast fighters get a lot more love and attention via press, social media, than a lot of the guys in the West Coast. I think
Berlanga gets a lot of heat, though, to be fair.
He does, but he's getting a lot of attention and buzz, both initially and even now. That's why the question is posed, as opposed to a Munguia who's got a much
But he's
thicker
quiet,
resume.
though. He doesn't say much, though.
He is a quiet guy, but, they've got guys typing for him, too. Janibek's always on social media. He barely knows English.
You mean that?
I don't
you don't
think that
that's
guy's...
him? You don't think
yeah,
that's him?
exactly. So, by the way, that's still a fight I'd really love to see. That's still a fight I'd really like to see. I'm hearing Munguia's looking good in wild card, too.
Yeah, well, he is now with Freddie Roach.
Correct.
Here's the issue with Berlanga. I believe that he signed on with Matchroom with the promise that Canelo was going to face him. Canelo's now not under the Matchroom umbrella. Munguia has set a record for turning down title shots the last 2 years. I think it's kind of embarrassing. I don't know if it's his handlers or him. In a perfect world, Berlanga, Munguia at 168, Wepa versus Orale, that's a real fight.
I love that either on Mexican Independence Day, Cinco de Mayo, or when they have the Puerto Rican Day Parade.
Right.
Any one of those 3 dates, make that happen.
And I want to say this about Oscar, who I believe wants to move this sport forward. But if you're going to talk about the Great Reset and we have to take a look at Showtime as a lesson that everyone has to work together, then you know what? Reach out to Eddie Hearn and vice versa and make that doggone fight.
Yeah.
You can't just have this be lip service. There has to actually be real, sustainable actions that are going to help the sport. Munguia and Berlanga, in my view, the winner of that fight for next year or down the line, they're in the mix for Canelo. But if they're just going to wait for Canelo, both of them, I don't want to see either of them get that lottery ticket.
I agree with you.
Here's a question from Hamed Boxing. He makes a couple of points. Is boxing in the USA struggling to find the next pay-per-view name once Canelo retires? Who's the next big pay-per-view stars? Crawford and Gervonta Davis both couldn't crack 200 to 300K without Errol Spence and Ryan Garcia. He also makes a point. HBO Boxing and Showtime Boxing now are also gone. Are there too many pay-per-views on?
Well, I was just talking about this after Canelo, right? Ironically. I heard, and maybe you know a little more about it, but the Logan Paul, who did he fight?
Dylan Dennis?
Dylan Dennis fight actually performed well, unfortunately.
There are some reports that say it didn't.
Well, by what standards?
Right.
I heard it got close to like $1 million. Or even broke $1 million. And I was like, wow. So does that mean we get more of that? Are those the pay-per-view
Yeah,
stars?
but isn't Logan Paul more popular than most, like 99% of your boxers?
My son is obsessed with that Prime energy drink. That's one of his Halloween costumes. He's done a masterful
Is he wearing the
job.
chain also?
Dude, no. He's literally the bottle. He's the bottle.
Well, but he's not going to wear the chain, though.
No. He wants to be the bottle. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. He does. I'll show you the picture of the bottle.
Yeah, I was an RC Cola when I was 12. I remember that. I was the can. Yeah, anyway.
Were you?
No.
I'm telling you, it's a real outfit. It's a real outfit. Him and his buddy are going as different flavors. My point is, they've tapped in to these. Look at it. See, look. I just showed you the picture. They've tapped in to something with these young kids. Look, I like that they're exposing the sport, even though it looks comical when they fight and crazy to such a young audience. The more exposure, the better. But there needs to be. We need to somehow merge these worlds where, like, there's some legitimacy and a real fighter and star can emerge. But I'm a fan of all the exposure to these fights. But I think they actually did real numbers, Kim.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say this again. Canelo, by the time he retires, will have close to 70 fights. Most of these young careers will not even have 40. I don't know how you develop a recognition with the general public, not me, you, and other people that just cover boxing.
Right. Especially fighting twice a year.
Especially fighting twice a year in your early 20s when you don't even have 25 fights.
Right.
I mean, a lot of these stars put in a lot of work, and people say, well, they're just tune-up fights. No. They're brand building also.
Teofimo, if he would have stayed active on the heels of Loma, then I feel we would be talking about him as the next big pay-per-view star. He's got the talent, the skill, the outlandish father with and they're charismatic, but because of the inactivity, Kim, they wouldn't recognize him across the street outside of people who watch the game.
Mario, you know what I told Tio's father? Everyone calls him Junior. I said, Junior, this is at the beginning of 2021, a couple of months after they beat Loma. I said, Junior, if I were you, I would march in the Top Rank and with Todd DeBuff and Bob Arum. And I said, you know what? Let's do 4 fights. We don't want just 2. Let's do 4. Let's try to make 1 on ABC. But let's do a year like De La Hoya, and they didn't want to do it.
If he did that, Kim, he'd probably be right in line to be the next pay-per-view star.
Right, or he would be. But right. Instead, they did the whole Triller thing, that whole escapade, and then he lost the fight he shouldn't have to Kambosos. Actions have consequences. Mm-hmm. But again, I don't know who's going to be that next guy like a Canelo that's going to carry that sport. That's why whatever Canelo makes, I've always said that's earned.
Absolutely.
That is absolutely earned.
Absolutely. Look, when you're at that point, last point I'll make on that. It's very few. It was Chavez, then it was De La Hoya, and now Canelo. And they make you star. De La Hoya is responsible for making Pacquiao a star, responsible for making Mayweather a star. Who other fighter can you say that they faced and they've essentially kind of made
beating De La Hoya made you something.
Of course.
It took you, at the very least, to a different tax bracket.
Absolutely.
And here's even the thing with Mayweather and Pacquiao. I know it's very in vogue to say Mayweather ruined the game. Let me just point this out. Again, by the time Mayweather got to De La Hoya, which launched him into the money phase of his career, I want to put this in perspective. He still had 37 fights.
Oh, yeah.
4 weight championships from 30 all the way to 47, and was no worse than the second best fighter in the world. And that was about 11 years into his career. So if everybody does that before launching into the real money phase, I'd say, you know what? I'm good with it. So I think it's just too easy and convenient to blame Mayweather. I really do.
To piggyback on that, he also was the product of some exceptional timing with 24/7.
And he exploited it.
That shoulder programming is what really sort of helped him and catapulted him.
Right. So we have an era where everyone says, well, social media and we can market ourselves. Right. And you're not fighting.
Right.
So that's really the definition of pissing away vitamins.
It's like having an actor not appear in any movies.
Well, you know what's funny? The guy that played Logan Roy, his name was Brian Cox, right?
Right.
He did an interview, and I was binging on some of the stuff he said something very interesting. He said, you know what? Even at my age, I try to take every role. And they said, why? Because I don't understand these young actors, whether you're an A-lister or a medium character guy. He goes, in my view, to be as good as you want to be at anything, you have to keep doing it. And I could not get better acting doing 1 role a year. And he says, I never look at any role as being big or small. I look at every role as being longer and shorter in terms of the lines that I recite, but it makes me better.
What a great perspective, and he's exactly right. Look, Santillan, we talked about him earlier. You reminded me because you said Brian Cox, and his name is Gallo de Oro, which is golden cock.
Yeah.
Literally, golden cock. Golden rooster, but technically golden cock. I know that's your personal favorite.
Oh, get out of
here. But Santillan has an opportunity right now based on that performance, if he were to stay busy, he can really create a lot of buzz and have some momentum and make himself a real player in this game.
And by the way, Brian Cox and Giovanni Santillan, they are serious people.
Yes.
Final flurries.
All right, moving on to the final flurries. Mario, what happened in Abu Dhabi with the UFC?
Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi's, bro, these sheiks love them some fights. What a card. Bravo, slow 80s cap.
Once again,
to my guy, Dana and UFC.
That's a little quick there on the slow cap.
Dare I say, was that quick on the slow cap? Because I was excited. Sorry. Timing. This might be the best year ever for mixed martial arts.
Ever?
Specifically UFC. The cards they put on, we got Crawford Spence almost every weekend in MMA because of the UFC. I'll just give you the last two co-main and main events. We had Kamaru Usman, one of the greatest welterweight champions of all time, going up a weight class to fight Khamzat Chimaev. Note to anyone listening or seeing us out there, never mess. I have 2 rules. If you're out in the street, never mess with anyone with that Lincoln beard and no mustache or with cauliflower ears. Never mess with if they have those 2 things, you politely just walk away. Don't mess with those dudes. My guy Chimaev, who was the Swedish, I don't know how he ended up in Sweden. He's from Chechnya. He has that warlord as his homie that they pal around with, the Putin's guy. Oh, Dana told me a story about them. That's wild. But anyway, he's a nice guy. I actually trained with him and hung out with him in New York. Big guy. I don't know how he makes 185. Kamaru Usman had not been taken down in the UFC, and he was also junior college national champion, really good wrestler. Chimaev took him down 4 times in that fight. Complete domination in the first round. Took Kamaru Usman's credit, showed a lot of heart, and a lot of people are saying that Chimaev started to gas and maybe it was 5th rounds. I'm here to tell you it was complete domination, and he deserves a title shot against Sean Strickland next. It was a great fight, but tip of the hat to Kamaru Usman for taking it on short notice. The main event, guy we love, Volkanovski.
The little fire hydrant.
The little fire hydrant took a fight on 11 days' notice against, oh my gosh, Khabib's guy. Islam Makhachev, okay, who's just another version 2.0 of Khabib, but a southpaw, and I think better striking. Makhachev set up a beautiful head kick that busted open Volkanovski's eye in the gash and just completely knocked him out. It was beautiful. Volkanovski was in that fight, but bam, just one blow. That was all she wrote. Again, tip of the hat for taking that fight, but Makhachev is a dude that is really special, probably pound for pound, best fighter in the game. It was a hell of a card, and what a way to, I was going to say close out the year. I'm actually going to go to the last fight, which is in December with Colby Covington versus Leon Edwards, but they're going to start having more fights. Dana just signed a whole new deal with Saudi Arabia, UAE for another 4 years, so there's going to be a lot more fights, and I like the afternoon fights, Kim. You drink, you're hanging out in the afternoon, you get to have a dinner, and you can go to bed at a decent hour.
The mindset. Big events, and these guys in less than 2 weeks said, I'm up.
Thank you. That's exactly what I was going to point at. They said, I'm up. That's exactly right. No, you're exact. Thank you. No excuse.
Just saying.
Yep.
Just factually saying what we do.
That's exactly right.
Mario, rest in peace to a guy that played such a key role and became iconic as I don't know what you call it, a supporting actor in the Rocky franchise, lived a full life, Burt Young.
Not his real name, Italian guy.
Really?
Very Italian. He was also like a Giovanni Slopiosi or something. It was like dripping with olive oil. I don't know what it was.
I'm glad they went to Burt Young.
But so they named him Burt Young. Burt Young had the Wilford Brimley thing. He looked the same age at 80 that he did when he was like, whatever he was, 30-something or something. They looked exactly the same. Yeah. He didn't age. The dude didn't age. He just always kind of looked old, right? Like Morgan Freeman. He was the best curmudgeon on film ever.
With the heart.
Got nominated.
Yeah.
Got nominated for an Oscar in the first Rocky. He was awesome. Of course, he was in The Sopranos and all that, but Paulie, man, was always the best.
He was the type of guy. I actually heard he had an amateur boxing career.
He did. There was some pictures there.
I just love that first Rocky where he basically tells Adrian, "I don't care about your Thanksgiving." Throws out the bird, and he sends Rocky and Adrian on their date to, I think, the ice skating rink. Yeah. And you're the curmudgeon with the heart. I just love the fact that him and Apollo did not get along in Rocky 3 when they went to the gym. But at the end,
can you swim with a name like Rocky?
Yeah. But then at the end, as they're walking, he goes, "Hey, Apollo, You did good.
You did good. I like that. That got me hard. That got me hard.
Like we're brothers now.
I know. I like that. That got me fired up.
We're like the movie version of Lou Duva and George Mann. Yeah. We are now solid.
When he was
partners.
starting to trade, he goes, "You're trying to make him dance like a gun. You're trying to make him fight like a gun."
Was he the only one that was in like the first 6, 7 Rocky movie franchises, going all the way to Rocky Balboa? I think he was in that one.
I think he's so.
Because I know that Adrian was not in the last couple.
Right. She died. Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. Mario, yes, you know it's true. I heard Milli Vanilli is going to have a documentary. I can't wait to watch. Now, it's not lip synced, is it?
It's got great reviews, too. It's on Paramount Plus, I believe. You might be able to find it somewhere else, but I think they got a raw deal if you think about it. They're lip syncing, but now we have a whole career of artists that have lip synced.
Auto-tune?
We're going to, exactly.
Auto-tune?
You know who was the first auto-tune? We just interviewed her on the radio show.
Greg Brady.
No. Cher. Cher did auto-tune 25 years ago with Believe. That was a first sample of auto-tune, and then, spawned careers like T-Pain, and everybody uses auto-tune. It wasn't even called auto-tune. It was called pitch. She had a pitch machine. She said she had a pitch machine. So Milli Vanilli, I've been hearing good things about this. I want to see it, and I want to report back. We should check this out.
Once again, I'm going to show my age, but I actually have that first and only album.
Dude, the songs are good, dude. I'm not going to lie. They're
Whoever
good.
did a hell of a job.
Yeah, studio session singers.
Blame It on the Rain.
Girl, You Know It's True.
Girl, You Know It's True. I mean, they had great dance moves.
Dude, they're great.
I mean, I remember when they got busted. I think it was in the summer of '91.
Was it on SNL?
No, it was on a tour. They're in concert.
Oh, yeah.
It was, yes, you know it. Yes, you know it. Yes, you know. And then after about the 10th, yes, you know, I think Rob or Fat had to run back and get the tape machine. It was really bad. I was like, God, someone fell asleep at the wheel there.
No, you can't have that.
But I have a question. This is the entertainment business. We know a lot of it is engineered. We know it's built. It's a mirage. I don't know why it was such a big... I kind of get them having to give back the Grammys, but in terms of everything they did... It was part of a package.
Back then, it was different, Kim. If you think about it, back then, you really had to have chops.
Yes.
You really had to sing. If you see some of these artists, especially from the 70s, too, you could say they had a face for radio. They didn't necessarily have, you know what I mean? It wasn't matinee idol looks, but man, they had incredible voices, right? And that was like towards the 80s is when they slowly started to kind of start to package, but you really had to have chops. Now... It's almost the other way around. It doesn't matter. You don't know who can sing. Doesn't matter who can sing. They'll still accept you and celebrate you.
And now I believe one of them years ago committed suicide, which is sad.
No, it's dark.
But I'll honestly tell you, sometimes on my YouTube music, when Milli Vanilli comes up, I don't change it.
Dude, it still hits. It still hits. I'm not going to lie.
And Mario, finally, what's this rest space?
Dude.
What am I talking about here?
All right. Do you know, like... With Uber, you can do everything, right? Uber Eats, you can do the dry cleaning now. There's a thing called Swimply.
What?
You can rent out your swimming pool for parties for people, all right?
That sounds like a terrible idea.
People do it. People do it. A guest in here does it almost every week and make a nice money every week, and they rent it out. This is the next level, and I didn't believe it was true until I talked about it on the show. They have a thing called Rest Space. You know what it is, bro? People can Uber your bathroom. If you're in the, I swear, few clicks of the Rest Space app can book a private restroom with a verified host so that you can stay out longer doing the things that you love. Isn't that crazy? So you can be going and you got to drop, you can Uber a bathroom, you go over there.
And there's available bathrooms will come up.
No, whoever's whole house is doing it, right? They go and hi, and they're at the door, okay, restroom's right over there, and then you drop, and they charge like $1 a minute. So if you want to post up there for 20 minutes, that's on you. And it depends. I have that Toto toilet, though. I have this one toilet that I should be able to charge more. I did not believe it, but we did on the show, and it's an actual real thing. It's an Uber bathroom. Would you let people come and drop in your bathroom?
No, I wouldn't. I've seen the way the Airbnbs have gone. No.
Isn't that wild? This is a real thing.
But again, at the same time, it does beat having people drop deuces in your bushes and your shrubs. Or just pissing on your sidewalk.
It's just in L.A.
What's just in L.A.? Oh, when they do that? Yeah. Bro, I've seen in California, basically. I've seen on Hollywood Boulevard, where I'm going to get the star. I've seen people literally just drop trout and go to town.
Oh, wait till you
go by the way, not wipe. Just boom, go about the business.
Wait till you go to San Francisco for Haney Pro Gray. I would suggest that you wear Timberland boots.
And you know what's crazy too, Kim? I've seen homeless people with phones. So, right? You've seen a lot of homeless people on the phone. So a homeless person can blow you up. Yo,
Yeah.
I'm here to do my business, and then they go about doing this is a real thing.
But
I'm going to send it to you because I know you like to post up and go.
No, but on a serious note, who would want strangers just
Space.
coming in and out of their home, though?
Someone who is hard up for money, I guess. Because why would you want to just have...
Mario stopped and used someone's bathroom and ate a meal during the Boston Marathon.
That's true, I did. But they didn't charge me. They didn't charge me. It was way before this. This is a true thing. It's currently offered in San Diego, Orange County, and LA, of course. But it's spreading. And
it
it's
needs
going
to
be
be
offered
in San Francisco.
Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy as hell. No, I wouldn't do it.
Even if you had a guest house?
No. What if the guy becomes a squatter?
Oh, that's right.
I'm thinking of every angle here.
He's already squatting.
Exactly. But, pal.
That's a real thing. Just something for you to consider. I just want to throw it out there.
Wow, that is a real pisser. Anyway, if you want to sponsor our fine program, once again, a reminder, email us, info@boxbid.io on behalf of Mario Lopez, Smoking Tim Frazier, and Tino on the edits. That's it for the 3 Knockdown Rule. Till next week, goodbye, everybody.